Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today is part 2 of a 4-part series where I'm exploring the same case at 4 different asset levels. Last week I introduced you to Ross and Rachel and they had $500,000. If you missed that video, the link to that video will be in the description down below. I'll even try to link it up here. I don't actually know how to do that. Before I jump into the video, I have 3 quick housekeeping notes. Number 1, last week I based the video on a chart from StatsCan. And in that chart, it said that about half of the investments of a person transitioning into retirement was in RSPs and half was in other. I forgot to highlight that, but that is how I broke out the assets for Ross and Rachel. So half was RSPs. A quarter was TFSA and a quarter was a non-registered. I'm going to keep that same ratio for today's video. I'll keep that same ratio next week for the $1 million video. But when we get to the 2 million, I'll probably have to tweak a few things just because otherwise the TFSA will get too large. Housekeeping item number 2. I've had a few of you ask me to do the same series for a single person, and I would love to do so. And in fact, I'm promising now that I will do that once this series has wrapped up. But I need to ask a favor of you. The YouTube channel is a business, and every time I do a single retirement projection video, my views go down. And when I do that, I have to kind of dig myself out of a little bit of a hole with the almighty YouTube algorithm. So if you want me to continue doing single retiree content, which I do, please like and share the video. And if you know me at all, you know how uncomfortable it is for me to ask you to like and share a video. It's not really my style, but please help me out so that I can continue to do that. Lastly, I want to ask you to stick around until the end because I'm going to look at today's video from an alternate perspective as well. Not only am I going to look at it as now Ross and Rachel have $750,000, great, but at the end I'm going to say it in an alternate way. Well, how much longer do Ross and Rachel have to work with their $500,000 to get to the same goal achievement score that the $750,000 has? If you want to wager a guess for how many years it would be in the comments, go right ahead. I'm willing to bet it will surprise you. Without any further ado, let's get into it. So let's start by just quickly reintroducing Ross and Rachel. They both turn 65 January 1 next year. They both will retire that very same day. They want to spend about $5,000 per month in retirement, or about $60,000 per year. As I mentioned before, their assets are broken out into $187,500 RSPs each, $93,750 TFSAs each, and a joint non-registered of $187,500 for a total of $750,000. Now, last week when I introduced them, their goal achievement had a 105% score. Now at $750,000 of assets, they have a 131% score. It's a huge difference with $250,000, which does make a lot of sense. Now for me, last week I was talking about how 105% meant there was some margin. It was good, but maybe not great. 131 before I've done any planning whatsoever is absolutely fantastic. And when couples or individuals come to me with scores like this before I do any work, I know I'm going to have a lot of fun going through this and finding just how much they can spend. What I want to do is go through the same steps that I did last week. And then, of course, I'm sure you see this coming. I'm going to add even more spending at the end. So just like last week, I'm going to yada my way through the first kind of 2 iterations. One was I delayed their CPP to age 70, which added another 5-6% to the goal achievement score. Then I added $10,000 worth of spending right here, inflating along the way, of course. That's from age 65 to 75. I also added $20,000 of an unforeseen expense every 8 years starting next year. Those are the curveballs that life throws your way. Now at this stage with $500,000, Ross and Rachel had some shortfalls showing around age 81, maybe it was age 82, and we had to actually sell their home, get them into a rental property to get them into a comfortable position. But in this case, I scroll down and there's there's no years highlighted in red. And just a reminder, a year highlighted in red means that we have some form of financial shortfall. So in this case, they do not have that. The extra $250,000 has wiped out, even with all these curveballs that I've thrown in. In fact, even here, after throwing in those curveballs, Ross and Rachel are at 119% goal achievement, which means there's still more margin. And like I said, I'm going to add some more travel. The other thing that immediately is screaming at me from the software is we do not need to access the equity in the home. If they choose to, great, all the power to you. But Ross and Rachel, now that they have $750,000 as opposed to $500,000, should, barring any drastic spending changes, they should never be backed into a corner where they have to do something to make sure that they can still make ends meet. That's a great problem to have. Now let's add a little bit more spending. So here's the newest version of it. We have the $60,000 in today's dollars. That's just their basic spending. $10,000 is their go-go travel, unforeseen expenses, life's curveballs. And then I put even more spending here. Finding yourself at a 131% goal achievement score before I do any planning is probably putting you into the category where I would say that they're level 4 financially independent, meaning they have a real opportunity to not only add all this travel spending or fun spending that we've added in, this also could be community impact or family spending. And this extra 10, I didn't put anything on here. I just put even more spending. And if they want to travel, great. If it's Harley Davidson's, great. If it's crafting, great. If it's going into your community, if it's going to your kids, whatever it is, that's up to you to decide. But there's still room here to add this extra 10,000 per year. I go down, still absolutely no years highlighted in red. It's a huge win. Let's check what the goal achievement score is. It's 108%. So this is actually better than the original baseline. So the original baseline did not have extra travel, did not have the curveballs, did not have the extra spending, but it had $500,000 of investments and it was at 105% goal achievement. Now they're at 108 with all of that extra spending. That's a huge advantage that a $250,000 makes. Let's look at this one more different way. Here's the baseline scenario. This is all the other curveballs thrown in, but at 750. So that extra $250,000 that they have by this age has led to them spending $323,000 more on themselves or whatever they've chosen to spend on. So it's disproportionate as well, right? That extra investment at that time has disproportionately allowed them to enjoy more whatever it is that floats their boat. In this case, again, we've increased their CPP by delaying it to 70 compared to the original baseline. So that's a pretty big impact as well. But that's where some of that spending will be coming from. But what a difference that makes. Now, at this point, the video seems kind of obvious, right? Ross and Rachel have more money. Retirement looks better. That's not rocket science. But when we come at it from the other perspective, how many more years would Ross and Rachel need to work to get to the same type of goal achievement just on their baseline? I'm not going to dive into the planning on this. I just want to compare baseline to baseline. So what I did is I assumed they're both making $75,000 a year, and they're going to work those extra couple of years, and they're going to keep their spending at that $60,000 level that they originally had asked for. So let's take a look how many more years it took. So here's the scenario. I have Ross and Rachel working 2 additional years. That's it. So 2 years, they're spending the $60,000 per year like they were planning to in retirement anyway. So they're already trying on their retirement, to use that analogy. But here's the payoff. So the baseline, if they had $750,000, is 131% goal achievement. The baseline, if they had had $500,000, but they work longer to offset to the 750, is 136% goal achievement. So let's call that even. So 2 additional years is all it took for them. Now, I've said this dozens of times on the channel by this point. It's not so much about what they invested in those years. Granted, that also helps. It's about the fact that they did not withdraw in that time, and it shortens the overall number of years that the retirement plan has. Those first couple of years of retirement are disproportionate, and you get to pick what type of disproportionate it's going to be. You spend like crazy in those first years, it's going to disproportionately impact your estate long term. You pull on the lever of working just 2 extra years like Ross and Rachel, and it disproportionately positively impacts your financial plan. If we dug into the actual numbers, after the age of 66, there's over a $160,000 difference between the assets from the original baseline of 500 grand and the 2 more years version after just those 2 years. That's the impact. Yes, they happen to invest a little bit. That doesn't hurt. The big impact, the big levers are shortening the time and not withdrawing. Those are the big things. If it's time for me to look at your financial plan, see how many more years that you can work to offset $250,000, or tell you that you're ready and you're at 130% goal achievement, there'll be another link in the description down below. It comes directly to me. Till next time, keep planning.